Hello, everybody. This is Enge here. I'm the principal for the Digital Marketing Solutions business unit here at Perficient. With me today is Jim Hertzfeld, our Chief Digital Strategist.
Hey
Jim, you
Eric,
want to
how you
introduce
doing?
yourself?
Sure. Yeah, Eric, it's great to be here. I am the Chief Digital Strategist for Perficient, and our focus is on really customer experience oriented strategy and aligning our clients' technologies, investments, and with their business operations to deliver a great customer experience. We do that a lot of ways. Some of those ways we'll end up talking about today. So, and it's great to be here.
Awesome. And for those of you who don't know me, I've been involved in digital marketing for over 20 years. Was the founder of a company called Stone Temple that got acquired by Perficient back in 2018. So I've had the privilege of working with Jim for just a little over 2 years now, and just an amazing talent in terms of overall digital strategy and really helping clients develop a vision and, for that matter, drive digital transformation. So great to do this together with you today, Jim.
Yeah, thanks, Eric. And it has been a great 2 years. I think you've really helped us and our clients really jump some great hurdles. A lot of people may not know that, but you are the author of The Art of SEO and a multiple award-winning search personality of the year. And it's just been a pleasure working with you and bringing some of your ideas to our digital strategies as well. So, and I would, and what's great about search, and I think this will maybe a great segue to get started. It's as a digital marketing leader, the focus on search and really the content that's driving that search and the content analytics is where pretty much everyone begins their customer journey. So, and I think that's that kind of capability is relevant, I think, to what we're talking about today as we think about how those capabilities are going to help others drive a holiday season that is really like the rest of the year turning out to be something we've never seen before.
Yeah, no, exactly. So many new experiences packed into 1 year.
Right.
But looking at our agenda here for a moment, so I mean, this is the kind of the topic area that we want to cover. Kind of at the core of what we're talking about today, or something that we'll certainly leverage a lot, is we did some research to help support the content of this webinar and everything we're going to be talking about. But we're going to be talking really a lot of really good topics here. Obviously the changes in the market, but how that's driven the importance of agility, and beyond just how you deal with the pandemic, but the pandemic is a trigger for us reevaluating that. What's going to be different this holiday season, with all the changes we've seen over the past 6 months. Which of those are here to stay and will continue to grow? And then how's consumer buying behavior changing, and how that impacts the need for brand trust? And personalization is another major topic area. And then finally, we're going to get into what's happening with digital marketing investments. Some of the data we have there is actually just crazy, really. So we're going to have good fun talking about all that. But first, just a little preview of the research we did that we'll be leveraging out throughout the webinar today. We surveyed 154 senior executives from enterprise organizations across all types of businesses and industries. So we're going to show not only aggregate data across all these, but in some cases we'll show some specific slices. So you may be in one specific industry area. We likely have you covered with at least part of our content. But what I wanted to do first is, Jim, let's start with you and talk a little bit about what some of the changes have been in the market, and really, what are some of the key lessons we can learn from the pandemic, and how should businesses behave differently?
Well, yeah, it has been, a heck of a year for everybody, and top of mind in a lot of ways. And I think the one of the things that kind of bearing out in the research, and honestly, I think I've been really pleasantly surprised. I think we all have been. Is just, and you'll hear this word a lot, is resilience. That we know things that we've always talked about it, about things changing quickly, and what we really mean by that, I think that's really the outcome of what we mean by agility. So we've all heard about agile development, we've all heard about agile organizations, but I think this is the year that that was really put to the test. But my when this was all when this started going down, what I didn't even think about is, and what people were dusting off, were business continuity plans. And that's a sort of an artifact of, yeah, I was reminded of Y2K. It was sort of a Y2K artifact. We've got to have a BCP. You got to have a, not just disaster recovery, right? But how do you continue when there's a major change? And that sort of came and went. And I think everyone talks about agility because they want to move faster. Um, but um, but continuity is around kind of keeping things the same way, right? And so I think it was good for, let's call it 2 weeks. Our continuity's plan is working enough for us to figure out what the heck is happening to us happening right now. So we got to go beyond continuity. Again, I thought that was really important. I thought it was a really great observation, but it really goes back to the flexibility of the business. And I think again, whether it's a pandemic or it's a new competitor or an upstart, the pandemic sort of drove a lot of fast changes that we just had to respond to survive. And I would say that we were pleasantly surprised by everybody, including, I'll pat ourselves on the back, our ability to shift and to react, not just keep things going and keep the lights on, but the ability to react. And what we and it kind of goes back to something we talk a lot about with digital strategy. We have clients that want to, they want to be agile, they want to be able to change their minds, they want to be able to react and personalize, they want to be able to change the business, not just the business strategy, but even the business tactics to evolve. So this was really I think a great place for strategic thinking to come into play, but not in the way that we're used to thinking about it. So strategic thinking is about kind of looking ahead, maybe 18 months, 3 years, 5 years. Now we're using those same kind of tools to figure out, to ideate and figure out how we change quickly. What should we do? Nobody was thinking about curbside pickup in January, and that became, it's become table stakes, I think, for a lot of retailers. So a lot of creative things that have happened in the response. But I think it all comes back to something that we're seeing on the slide here, that is, we need to be able to respond quickly. And what our study shows is that about 3/4, about 76% said they were able to respond within weeks. And we saw this. There's a lot of creativity, a lot of innovation, and again, a lot of resolving a lot of uncertainty pretty quickly. So,
Yeah. Oh, sorry, Jim.
Yeah, go. No.
Yeah. So, I mean, there's demand for this quick response time, and I mean, how to get brands to do that? What are the kinds of things that people we need to be able to do to accomplish this?
Well, I think first of all, I mean, we see things in terms of traditional sort of layers. There's the experience, there's the business operations, and there's the technology and data that has to drive it. You hope that the experience, to me, is about, we've talked about this before, Eric, and other conversations about empathy. So it's really having the sense to drive insights, understand, listen, understand their problems, understand their needs. I think design, UX design practices, marketing analytics, both the qualitative and the quantitative, is all about sort of sensing. And I think a lot of brands do that really, really well. And that's really putting the customer in front of your own needs, which is sometimes hard to do when you're just trying to survive or make payroll in some cases. So I think you always have to have an eye on the on what the customer is really looking for. You know, you in that middle tier, you know, how do you operate differently? And I think, you know, what we saw, and I think the really successful, most resilient companies have had, you know, it's really a dropping of the silos, right? I think you know, we still see this in a lot of companies where they're fairly siloed and sometimes for good reasons, sometimes, you know, it's just inertia, but it's the ability to say, okay, we're going to change the way we do this. And I think that's a lot of modern thinking that's come into play. You know, the hard part is on the technology. Does the technology brittle? You know, do you have access to the data that you need? Do you really need all the data? You know, those are, you know, and that's where obviously, you know, we work with a lot of clients too, because, you know, these are an you know, a fully realized omni-channel experience is you know, it certainly depends on delivering the right experience, but you know, the complexity is today, it's just with us, is in the systems and the technologies that need to make it work. You know, so things like you know, having supply chain visibility, you know, when you're not sure if your suppliers can make it, when you don't know what you can promise, you know, when you can't, you know, get toilet paper back on the shelf. I know it's kind of a cliche at this point. You know, those are tough supply chain problems that are largely technology problems, and you know, unfortunately, you know, those investments are still needed, but none of those work if you don't have the sort of operational resilience, and I've seen that a lot.
So just one other chart that I put up here, Jim, just because I thought it was interesting too, is, you know, this is some of the things that our survey respondents said about some of the things that they did in response to the pandemic. New delivery options, obviously, I found it fascinating that 51% went to wholly new products and services. You know, that says something about agility right there.
Yeah, I mean, and I think again, and I think sensing. I think if you know, certainly you know, curbside was a really creative response. You know, clumsy at first, a lot of patience up front. You know, now it's almost expected, and you know, very, you know, brands are, you know, we say this a lot too. You know, the experience is the brand, and so, you know, again, and those expectations move quickly. But you know, I think you know, I think you know, having those options and the options to communicate too, not just the pickup, but how do you know, how do you communicate to the right associate in the store, and what's the coverage in that store, and can they walk out? Will they walk out when it's raining? You know, so I think that a lot of those things got resolved quickly, but again, they've become table stakes for now. But you know, I like the idea of like new products and services. You know, I think the easy ones here are like, you know, the distillers who started making hand sanitizer, right? And the fashion companies that started selling masks, right? I thought that was, you know, Ford making ventilators. You know, there was some great examples of things that happened quickly. And again, I think they're setting the bar. I think they always had the ability to do it, right? We just didn't have the drive to do it.
Right.
Again, back to agility. We just can't say enough about it. So Eric, you know, I think that's a lot about the kind of our shared experience, right? I think everybody on this call here over the last 6 months or so. But you know, I now we're coming up on you know, a new kind of a new, I don't want to say a new normal. That's a little cliche, but you know, hey, we're coming up on the holiday season. We're in the middle of it, or on the cusp of it. So yeah, what are you seeing, and what's the study saying? What's the survey saying differently about how the holiday season is going to be different this year?
Yeah, I'm definitely going to share something on that in a second, but I just wanted to start by observing that you've already seen companies like Target and Home Depot and Walmart and Best Buy and Kohl's. You know, they're not opening on Thanksgiving Day, and they're not viewing Black Friday as the sole event or Cyber Monday as the sole event. They're drawing the whole experience out. So Amazon, for example, is starting new deals on October 26th this year. So that's a trend that has already started, but the circumstances of this year are truly accelerating that. So, referencing the data that we got in our survey, we stuck in a quarter there, a question there. Well, the question really was how 2020 holiday season would be different. But one of the answers we gave them was there'll be a cyber quarter, because that was our concept of how things might be a bit different. And of course, you'll see also in the data, answers, there will be no Black Friday or there will be no Cyber Monday. And it turned out the #1 answer we got was that there will be no cyber quarter, followed immediately by people will do most of their shopping online instead of in store, which, it's closely related, but not exactly the same kind of question. But this is a really interesting conversation area because it tells you there's going to be a lot less pressure about one day being this big event, and having to make your entire company bet on some 24-hour period that makes or breaks your entire quarter. And that's kind of the good news of it. The bad news of it is that you need a different plan, right? You need to be thinking about something that's going to be drawn over a longer period of time, and figure out how to spread out that excitement and intensity that people are feeling about this event that they're used to. And we actually saw that many companies were still planning for there to be a Cyber Monday. You can see our data that suggesting that only 22% bought into that potential concept. So, and to be fair, the way we asked the question, it's possible that they are seeing that the Cyber Monday won't be as big a thing, but there still will be one. And I think that might be a fair interpretation of this result. But I do think that and hope that businesses aren't focused on just these 2 days the way that they were a few years ago, because I think the experience is going to be very, very different than it was, a few years ago. And I already mentioned Amazon and Kohl's and the others that are already been morphing on this. And it's actually also interesting to see how this varies by market. If you look at a couple questions here, this idea, that there'll be no Cyber Monday, and I showed the aggregate data before, but here we've broken it into different industries. Consumer retail actually scored the lowest here, which is interesting to me. And then there will be a cyber quarter. They scored the lowest here too. So it suggests to me that maybe not everybody is yet prepared for how different it's going to be. And I think it's going to be really interesting to see how businesses manage their way through their whole process. I just don't think you're going to be able to steer everything towards one day with steep discounts on that one day, because you're going to have all this other competition, and I shared some of the names early on, that are going to be spreading their efforts across all kinds of time, across a wide swath of the entire quarter. So they're going to be competing for that business over 90 days. You probably shouldn't make all your bet on a single day. So that's at least part of my thought process on that. And just take it a little further, just looking at, there'll be no Black Friday. So, again, I'm not sure how ready consumers are going to be to pile in droves into stores on late Thursday night and all through Friday. It's going to be awfully hard to be socially distant and restrained in what historically has been somewhat of a frenzied environment. I mean, it's kind of cool in a way. It was an event, but people are going to be less keen for that event, right? And then, of course, looking at this data on what people think, or various industries think about doing shopping online versus in store. So this is a fascinating contrast. The same retailers that said that they didn't think there was going to be a big cyber quarter are seeing 75% of them seeing most people doing shopping online rather than in store. So that was pretty interesting to me as well in terms of this data. But just thinking about all that with changes in the customer and consumer behavior that we've talked about over the past 6 months, what do you think? Do you think some of these are going to become permanent?
I think all the evidence says so, right? And the evidence is really, again, really around the experiences that we're seeing companies and brands providing. And there have been a lot. I mentioned, the curbside pickup is something. It's table stakes. It's going. I think those are things that become table stakes when we experiment with something and it works. We're going to keep doing it. That's how innovation has worked for forever, for at least for decades, from a business perspective, once innovation was sort of quantified. So, I think, I think again, in this purpose of agility, none of us want to make predictions, right? We want to have options to move in and out. So, like I said, I think the behaviors will dictate them. But I think there are a few things and a few reasons why, and frankly, business reasons why some of these things will stay. And there was a joke. There was kind of a running joke. Some people may have seen it right away. I mean, I think this joke even came out in March that there was a poll question. Who led your digital transformation? The CIO, the CEO, or COVID-19? And it's a great joke because it has been an accelerant. But I think I look at this in kind of a couple of lenses. I think probably from a consumer lens and then from a B2C lens and from a B2B lens. I think just from a lifestyle perspective, like we were all immersed in virtual and video everything, right? So we were suddenly homeschooling. We're on video calls, which is great because I get to see you more than I used to, right? Just on video.
Right.
So a lot of lifestyle changes, and again, some of these are really innovations, right? Outdoor restaurant dining, alcohol pickup, to-go cocktails. Who would have thought that those things would have happened? But I think that that is sort of immersing us and getting consumers more comfortable with some of these virtual options. So telehealth is a great example. So telehealth has been slowly making its way, through into healthcare. And there are a lot of really practical reasons for it, because of travel or just maybe mobility limitations that some patients have, but now it's access, right? And I think the healthcare providers said, well, you can get access. I can get access to any doctor. I can acquire a provider or doctor, without on the other side of the world. I mean, that has been part of the promise of telehealth. And it's, as people and as organizations get more comfortable with that, then they're and they've been forced to do that. Then some of those have been accelerated by COVID. So I think again, I look at two. There's the voice of the customer and the voice of the business. Those will dictate whether these things stick ultimately or not. There's a bit of fatigue factor. I miss traveling. We all do. I miss my friends. I miss seeing you in person. But there are a lot of other, again, there's some practical advantages, and those things will always drive it. And I think, more on the consumer side, we're seeing much more AR and VR. Again, something we've been talking about forever, and really taking off. So working with a client right now, building a fit finder experience, really innovative. And this is from the manufacturer who's going to go direct to consumer. So you're seeing some of these business models come into play, like DTC, in a very different way. We'll have more to talk about on that later. Certainly, and obviously, commerce, right? And not just buying, but also returns. So I don't know if anybody's noticed that, but I don't want to go out twice, right? Or once, much less twice. But I think on the B2B side, if I can just cover that for a second, I think we're also seeing some big changes, and I think this will manifest itself in the employee experience. But when again, everything's going virtual and video. virtual conferences, virtual sales, virtual happy hours, virtual wine tastings. It's all there. It's fun, but will it last? I don't know. We've gone from working from home to living at work. So again, I think huge productivity gains, but can the workforce really sustain it? But I think there are some great things. I will talk about some of these distinctions in personalization later. But I think from the I think we're seeing a real shift in sort of B2B sales in the sense that you used to have a rep that would come out and visit you or take you to lunch or meet you on the job site,
Right.
and that went from an in-person to a phone call, and it went from a phone call to a Zoom call to driving you to e-com, self-service, or the contact center or inside sales. So again, I know a lot of people on this call may not be familiar with those use cases, but we're getting kind of a comfort level, and a lot of B2B, a lot of manufacturers have wanted, that the field sales force is expensive, and how do we channel those people to the right clients on the right products, and then economically serve the rest of the client community. So I think we're seeing again a lot of accelerants in a lot of different ways. So again, but again, that agility is likely to become permanent, but if the customers and businesses can justify it.
Yes, indeed, and it will change in many ways. I think the businesses behave, right? So, do you have examples of that you could share?
Well, yeah, I touched on a couple of them. I think certainly I mentioned working from home to living at work. I think we're seeing a lot of rethinking the office environment. Do I need an office? How much office space do I need? Um, the other thing I think is really interesting is the talent reach. So I used to, and we've had clients too, where I need, for a lot of reasons, because of great teamwork, because of our sense of community, or security reasons, everyone has to be in the building together. Well, that changed overnight, and so so it sort of changes the value proposition of a geography or an office, and business now I can hire anyone. I could hire anyone anywhere in any time zone on any continent. So I think we're going to see a lot more globalization uh, um, take shape coming out of that as well. But I think all this, again, it's painfully obvious. All this shift to digital, this level of comfort with digital means, we've got to get better. Brands got to get better at obviously at commerce, at digitizing and building agility, and it's a rethinking of the way we're doing branding and digital marketing, because the awareness challenges are totally different. We're not driving down the street looking at billboards or stopping at the mall, or and so it's a real shift. I think we'll see some of those later. But so I think some of those are the experience. Again, the customer and employee experiences that we have to think about. But I think it really comes down to, again, kind of shopper and buyer behavior. So businesses are changing. But Eric, like how is the buying behavior changing?
Yeah, well, it is changing, and I think some of it is changing potentially forever, right? But it's a little bit of a yes and no to that. And I think, like you said in the last question that I asked you, some of that stuff will stick for a longer period of time, and some of it won't so much. But we also looked at another aspect of consumer buying behavior, and this is one of the questions that we asked people about major changes that they were expecting to see. And it was really interesting. It was a big focus in the response on buying more in bulk. So that's kind of obvious. And then buying more branded versus generic. And I think what we're seeing is that many brands are really expecting the shift in consumer behavior to be really permanent, not just specific experiences, but also at a more global level. And that's where we see the interest in buying in bulk and buying brands. So For one thing, people just got used to it, so the behavior change will become a habit.
Mm,
But the way I think about the brand conversation is we're in an environment where trust became a lot more important. Do I trust that the company I'm buying from is handling products the right way? They're following the right safety procedures, that they have enough of a caring about me as a customer that they're doing the right thing. And and if you think about brand more generally, why would that equate to trust? And there's a lot of reasons for that. Longevity, if you've been around for a long while, that creates a sense of trustability, trust rather, relatability.
hmm
I always use Flo from Progressive as the example. You know, you like her, and so that makes you more relatable and the like. And of course, authority. If you feel like you're dealing with the best, that creates a great deal of confidence. Accountability, especially if you, as a brand, you do a good job of holding yourself accountable when the time comes. And the existence of social proof. And, large brands, that do a good job tend to do this really, really well. And so all of these sort of equate from a consumer perspective to feeling like there's less risk. The buying in bulk thing, I think, is really a bit more about the convenience of it. First of all, if you might have something that you used to run down to the corner store to buy, and now you don't feel like running down to the corner store anymore. So you buy it online. Well, there actually was a good thing about the corner store. I could discover at 9 in the morning I was out of something, and I could by 9:30 have gone down to the corner store and picked it up. And while Amazon, made incredible strides in delivery, A, that's Amazon, it's not everybody, and B, there's just a bit of immediacy when you're buying online. So I think that drives a tendency to buy more. And then it's just the desire to do fewer transactions. And who knows, there might be a little hoarding mentality going on there too. Still, we certainly saw that early on in the toilet paper arena.
right.
So, but anyway, given all these changes in how consumers are buying, oops, sorry, went too far there. So that leads me really to sort of the next question is, what are businesses doing to more directly address their individual visitors and tailor their experiences based on the people that are site? And what are they doing about personalization, basically?
Yeah, I mean, I'll tell you, I would say right up until this hit, I think there wasn't a client or brand that didn't have a personalization ambition, right? And again, I think like a lot of things in this experience, what we found is, that I mean, some of those ambitions sort of took a little bit of a backseat. There were bigger fish to fry. So I still think there are ambitions here, but I think again, what this has done is probably served the opportunity to, or focused the personalization opportunity. So when we talk about personalization, I mean, there really is a lot of ground to cover. It's one of those phrases or one of those terms that sort of means everything and nothing. And we talk about personal, anonymous personalization and captive personalization and personalizing to content and am I authenticated and what are the implications? And ultimately, what we're trying to do with personalization, is drive. We're trying to drive an event. We really you're personalizing. You're making a recommendation because you want them to add that to the cart. You are giving them an order history that's personalized to them because you want to generate. You want to provide some convenience. And so that they keep coming back and maybe they reorder, right? So there's always, the every personalization experiment, is really an experiment in conversion in my mind. But I think what we've seen, again, I'll maybe split this into sort of a B2C perspective and a B2B perspective. I'll start with B2C because I think that's been a little simpler. I think what the kinds of problems that we were focusing, the kinds of personalization problems that we were trying to solve a year ago were what I would put in sort of the omni-channel category. We're trying to use personalization so that, for example, I'm shopping online for a car, I build and price. I've dialed in, the vehicle that I want, the color, the options. I may even have looked at dealer inventory. And then I contact the dealer or I drive up on the lot and they don't know anything about me, right? So I've lost a personalization opportunity. I'm not picking on a dealer or an OEM, but I think it's a relatable use case. So, but that's an omni-channel use case. Like, how do I get that continuity in the purchase process? Because those are opportunities. Again, I'm reducing friction. I am making it in the buying process. I am expressing interest in that customer. I'm able to respond to, are they, what sort of lifestyle am I supporting if I'm buying, a a pickup truck versus a minivan, right? Or a crossover. So, those are great sort of opportunities to kind of nurture a buying journey. What we're seeing, I think, immediately is how do we build more awareness, right? And so I'm calling personalization post-COVID, it's more of an awareness device, because kind of like I said at the beginning, like every shopping journey starts with a with a with a web search, and or more accurately a mobile search, right? So that's building awareness, right? And so whether it's in targeted Instagram ads or social ads, or just driving really good search results and SEO results and relevance, that was already where we started. Our customer consumers were starting their journeys, and now we've just elevated that. Again, we've accelerated that need. So I think on the B2C side, we're going from let's reduce friction, especially in considered purchases, to like let's drive awareness. And so I think there are some opportunities to do that, so that those shopping initiations are relevant to me. And I think that sort of translates well to the B2B side. Now, I would argue that I don't think we're seeing a lot on the B2B side around personalization that is really driven by COVID. That is as much more around just the B2B universe, just kind of slowly building their maturity. I think they are a little behind, but I think there's good reasons for that. I think B2B purchases is purchasing rather. We like to say it's a team sport, right? It's a team sport where you're spending other people's money, right? And so, it is, there is a process to it. There are not a lot of impulse purchases in the B2B world, and I think there's other research on this as well, but driving relevance is more important than sort of individual customization. And I think you see that here in the data too. On the B2C side, when we're talking about a customer journey, we're really talking about the beginning of that journey, and in being very close, again, using personalization as an awareness device. But on the B2B side, and we're seeing, again, this is kind of a continuation of the trend. We're seeing a lot more, I would call it sort of nano targeting, really defining much more narrower audiences, for different products or different configurations of products, having a deep focus maybe on a specific industry. So if you're building, if you are a construction manufacturer or a truck manufacturer, are you focusing on certain industries? Let's say, am I focusing on ice cream trucks? I'm not kidding. This is how deep it's getting. Am I focusing on certain types of landscapers, right? And I think those are the types of sort of hyper segmentation. The other thing I think we're seeing on the B2B side is this term I hear called recovery agents. So as we come out of an economic recovery, a lot of the B2B focus is on, there's a lot of B2B opportunity on businesses helping other businesses recover. I think that's a really cool concept, so I think that may have an influence on, again, the relevance of personalization. So, but I could go on, Eric. There's a lot we've already covered. I I do want to mention just to the audience, because in this last 20 minutes, I think we'll have some time for Q&A. So
Yeah.
if you've been thinking about some questions, you have some questions, we'd love to field those in our last few minutes. So feel free to drop those in the chat box. But Eric, like I said, we did cover a lot. I think this great springboard from personalization into what does this all mean? Lessons learned in the past, coming up on the holiday season. One of the things I like about the cyber quarter is that you mentioned that we're not placing. It's not a big bet on one day, right? We have a lot of window to tune, to sense and respond. To use analytics to our advantage, to think about merchandising and promotions a totally different way. I mean, what else do what else is the data, and what are you seeing in terms of driving digital marketing for the rest of the year?
Yeah, and actually, just to follow up to what you said there, I think that's such an important point, Jim, is when you think about agility in a different way, how important it is that businesses think about making sure they have the systems in place to rapidly gather information and respond in real time. That's so much more than just a COVID-19 or pandemic response type thing. It's just going to be table stakes going forward. Your ability to recognize small ripples in the market and capitalize on them with great speed, I think, and having the infrastructure in place for that. From a digital marketing perspective, analytics is actually a piece of that, for sure. But then again, so is your website more generally. We did ask a few different questions. I actually have a bunch of slides to share in here with some really cool data. Here's what happened when we asked our participants what they saw about the importance of their website and how that was impacted by the pandemic. And it's fascinating. 76%, sorry, 67%. I reversed those two numbers in my brain there. Saw it increasing. There's more than 5 times as many saw the importance decreasing. And think about that. If 6 months ago I had told you that something that was going to happen was going to accelerate the growth of e-commerce, you would have laughed at me. Yeah, come on, Eric. It's like already taken over the world, right? Of course, not every business is in that situation, but a lot are. But it was clearly the focus on the website was upped in a pretty dramatic way. And you can take that a little further and look at the change in the actual investment in the website. And here the numbers are even more stark. More than 10 times as many brands were seeing their website investment going up as a result of the pandemic as going down. And that's just a crazy illustration of a part of this landscape that has changed so dramatically as a result of this. I think it's going to cause a little bit of a race, right? Because you don't really want to watch your competitor transforming into this new environment more quickly than you and stealing a market edge on you by getting there faster. So, and we're already seeing that with a number of businesses that are just really doubling down, literally, on what they're spending, on the website in a broader sense. And we actually broke this down, into various market segments too. So this chart here on the left, the bar chart, is showing the ratio of businesses that were increasing their view of website importance. Technology only 3.3 times as many, saw it going up as down, but it's still really high. The other industries category, we had to call it other industries, even though there are 6 or 7 industries in it, because we just didn't feel that each individual industry was statistically significant enough to break out individually, but across the board, what you see here is just a huge sense of the importance. And then over here on the right, we're actually talking about the stats in terms of investment. Apologies for the little typo in the title there. You know, 6.3 times as many people are in technology increasing their investment. And nobody in consumer retail was seeing a decrease. We had around 12% that were staying flat, and everybody else was all in at upping their investment. But just across the board, it really tells such a strong story about how people are viewing all this. So we were excited just already by all this data, but we actually broke it down even further into the individual, well, 5 of the individual disciplines. And again, here we're looking at a ratio of those who said they were increasing their investment over those who said they were decreasing it. So 5 times as many said they were increasing SEO investment as decreasing, and so forth. You know, the weakest category was still quite strong with automation at 3.3. So it's like across the board. And I love the fact that CRO came in at the highest rated category, because that to me is about doing more with less, right? So, you know, you have a certain number of visitors to your website, and you have a market where a lot of them are less likely to spend more or spend as much. They might be getting more conservative with their dollars. You certainly have unemployed people, sadly too many of those, but who are going to be spending less. So look to your conversion rate. You know, and I always love talking about this. You know, you have 10,000 visitors to a section of your site. Currently, you converted 2%, say. What if you could make that 2.4%? Revenue just went up 20%. And all I did was, you know, worked on conversion rate optimization for a while. So that's just, you know, crazy interesting data to me when you look at this stuff. If we dig in a little deeper, though, which we did, we broke this out by the various types of businesses, just because, you know, a lot of times, you know, it's like, oh, that's just like a B2C thing, or, but it turns out that it applied across the board, B2B, B2C, and even B2G, where upping their investment. In fact, the interesting thing here is B2G was the most aggressive category of businesses across the board. But you know, everybody, effectively every type of business was committing heavily to significant increases in digital marketing across all the various disciplines we looked at. And then just another slice of the data here is just by you know, the various types of industries, I had them highlight in red the consumer retail side of things, because that was what was crazy to me here. It's like literally, you know, nobody was decreasing. Yes, there were some that weren't increasing, but and then a whole large swath of people were really significantly increasing their investment. But even across all the other types of channels and industries and areas of investment, just everything is increasing. So talk about digital transformation, Jim. This is a piece of it right here. But what do you think about all this?
Yeah, I think it's interesting to see the data. Again, it's, you know, everything's moving so fast, and we've been sort of living this and experiencing it. I think, you know, when you talk about conversion rate optimization in CRO, I've always thought that was, you know, there's a sort of an underappreciated discipline, I think, from a marketing, and commerce perspective in particular. I think I got started in commerce when we think about cart conversion, but there's applications across every event. And we talked a lot about personalization. I mean, every one of those personalization experiments, every A/B test, is an opportunity for conversion science. And so, but to me, I think why the reason I think it stands out because it's one of those sort of continuous improvement type of tactics that like if you're not sure, again, you're dealing with uncertainty, or your funding is just limited, and or everyone's on hold. It's a great tactic to kind of just fuel those interactions one at a time. So I think it's a really, and I think again, I think there's a lot of opportunities to do that, right? SEO is a great opportunity, CRO. I won't go into all the TLAs or three-letter acronyms, but those are the two TLAs that I think stand out the most because they are kind of continuous improvement opportunities, right? So when your team's at home and you're not sure what's going on, those were great investment opportunities. I think the other thing that maybe we haven't gotten into, it maybe is the kind of the effect of globalization. I talked about it in terms of staffing, but a little bit of in supply chain, but I think the way sort of global delivery is going to be sort of slowly come back. It'll get more attention. Again, I'll mention supply chain. That's a whole other domain to go into, but this event, is certainly going to kind of spotlight, some other opportunities to bring resilience and business continuity and agility back into play. So, I think, and all that gives us the option, to apply things a little more tactically.
Cool. So why don't we go see if we have any questions out there? Which reminds me, I probably should open my chat window so I can see them. Okay. So with so many areas to consider and decisions to make, what should my first priority be? Where should I start? What will have the most impact? Jim, why don't you take that?
Yeah, that's a great, I mean, I think that goes back to sort of this uncertainty, right? And we talk a lot about, one of the ways we like to think about this, we have an approach we call now, new, next. And now, new, next is sort of, when you faced with 100 ideas or 1,000 ideas, and I always say this, like, ideation is great, don't get me wrong, but there's so many ideas. Like, how do you boil that down to the 20 ideas that matter? The 5 ideas that are going to move the needle, and the one idea that you're going to get, let's say, funding and buy-in for. That's a tough one. So I think one of the ways to do that, is you really have to kind of look at a portfolio. The way we think about these, if you've got 100 ideas, and you have to make a tough choice. Do I take a risk and innovate on something, or do I kind of keep the lights on and kind of double down on what I'm doing? The answer is you kind of have to do both, and we call that sort of a portfolio approach. So I think you have to have good rules of engagement. You have to have good, and where those rules are delivered are really back to things I talked about: the voice of the customer and the voice of the business. So, have customer. We talked about this so many times, Eric. To have customer empathy, have a sense on what they want, and a lot of that is driven by expectations, and a lot of those expectations come from outside your category. So how do you think about, we didn't talk enough about restaurants, but open table, like that's, you've got to reserve a table to get it to see if you want to sit down at a restaurant today. If you're lucky enough to do that where you live, then you've got to reserve it. And so that open table experience, how does that translate to scheduling my doctor's appointment, even if it's a telemedicine appointment? So sometimes those expectations can drive the value and the voice of the customer in those decisions. But to me, it's about having, having visibility into what those expectations are, figuring out, which ones matter from a business perspective, and then getting really good at kind of of being objective, having objective scorecard about which ones to choose. And don't overthink it. We have a phrase we use a lot: think big, start small, move fast. So thinking, again, back to agility, thinking sort of small releases and what you can do and how you can iterate on making those changes.
Yeah, and from a digital
But
marketing perspective, I mean, to me, it's a clear case of having the right information about what's going on is power. That old saying, information is power, right? You just need to make sure you have the right data sources so you can come up with the right strategy. And so you have to be in a position to get that data and respond to it quickly. And that's, I mean, certainly your analytics data is key in terms of what's going on with your website, but also and third-party analyst data, if you can get access to that, third-party research reports, Google Trends. These are all tools that are just really critical to you having the right information so that you can figure out, is it SEO or CRO, or do I want to go into paid media? We saw a lot of people saying they're going to up their paid media spend, even though most of our respondents agreed that paid media costs were going to go way up. So that drives a need basically to get more efficient, right? So all these things, you have to make sure you have the right information sources. But we do have another question. This one is: any particular tools and tips for conversion rate optimization? So I think maybe I'll take that one if that's all right.
Please.
So Justin, I think the first thing is you have to make sure you have the right systems put in place to get data, right? I mean, certainly there's a lot you could do at a qualitative level and look at a page and make judgments about why a page might be underperforming or not, and that's a big key, but a very useful thing to do. But setting up things like Hotjar to track mouse movements on a page, or putting in place one of the many tools out there for A/B testing, actual A/B testing. Getting that kind of data is critical to start. And then really my next tip on the conversion rate optimization side of things is don't be afraid to be bold, right? I mean, yes, you'll read stories out there about someone who changed the color of a button from green to orange, and conversion rate went up by 20%. And it used to be thought that orange was the color of conversion. And you'll read those things, but in a lot of cases, it's smarter to re-envision the approach and not be afraid to do something fairly dramatic, especially in the context of an A/B test where you can show one version of a screen to some users and another version to others. And that's the last point that I'll add on that one. So with that, I think we are at time. So thank you all for attending. Hopefully you found this interesting. For those of you who were here, we are going to send you a copy of the deck. And of course, if you have any needs from a digital strategy or digital marketing perspective, please reach out to us. We'd be pleased to see if we can help. Thank you again.
Yep. Thanks everyone for joining. And thanks to our study participants. And take care, Eric.
All right, you too, Jim.